Impression the game you get out with what you put into it. It's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
But not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as Richie Bennett sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well, God, Shawnee Buckley. To do that to Tomas O'Shea. He deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the word go today. No more about it. They made all the running, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the back of it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there much time left? We've had a couple of injuries. Here comes Keogh Curry. Curry leading the charge of the left brigade. 45 metres out. He's a chance to score. He's put it high.
There's no sympathy in this game for anybody.
Hello, and you're very welcome to the latest episode of Treaty Talk. It is myself, Tom Clancy, and I'm joined this week by John Keogh, deputising for the great Matt O'Callaghan. John, how's life?
Things are good, Tom. Yeah, I'm in the hot seat with Matt not being available, so I'll try and do him a bit of justice, but I don't think I'll get there somehow.
Yeah, big talking points from the weekend, which we'll come to in a minute in terms of the football. Matt. See, all habits die hard. John, I should say. Just an overall, incredibly proud performance. I think people will agree. Incredibly disappointed to come out the wrong side of it, but a great year for the Limerick footballers. And a real roller coaster along the way.
Yeah, Tom, you've hit the nail on the head. I think saying it's a great year for the footballers. I mean, I certainly like one day out in Croke Park would have been fantastic if it just finished, with that league final win over Wexford. All those months ago now, it feels like so much has happened since, and then to play in Croker twice more in the Tailteann semi-final, successful one in that, and then obviously losing out to Kildare. There's no shame in that, obviously, but given the fact that the game was there to be won for Limerick, they didn't let themselves down in any shape or form. Maybe just with the finishing line in sight in the final quarter, legs on a very, very hot day may have just tired slightly, and what a year for the footballers. Again, I repeat, three days out in Croke Park. You would never hear the likes of it for the footballers. You don't hear the likes of it for the hurlers. They're usually, when they've been successful, it's been twice in Croke Park, so it's just been a phenomenal year. With silverware to boot as well, promotion from Division 4 secured, and then to go on to win that league final and come ever so close to winning the Tailteann Cup, and then which would of course meant Sam Maguire football next year. But ultimately, we're going to have to settle for a league win, and if started the year, we would have taken a hand off for that. So fantastic year for the footballers, and really to be the final team from the county, out in an All-Ireland final, just a week ago now, pretty much something else, Tom. Something, you want a good run to the Tailteann Cup. We hadn't got past the quarterfinals up to that stage, up to the semi-final, getting there this year with that win over Wicklow and, the win over Wexford in the two Gaelic rounds in the quarterfinal. It was just a great year.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll come to our guest, Brosnan, from meeting now in a second, John. But good news for Gaelic Games fans across Limerick in the last few days, and an agreement reached with the return of streaming, something that was missed by so many far and wide in the county and beyond. Of being able to tune to the games at different times, and just a little promo video here first, and we'll discuss that then for a second. Yeah, John, setting the tone there. Over 30 plus games across hurling and football starting this Friday with senior football over the next couple of months. It's going to be frantic, John, for the likes of yourself and myself, but I think you and I will share the opinions of a lot of people around the county. It's great to have it back, and it'll be a great platform for people to get in touch with our club game as well.
Massively, Tom. Yeah, we thoroughly missed it last year. We were at a lot of games still, but there was something missing from our point of view, commentating on so many of the games. It was definitely a loss. from not having the ability to do that last year. But looking ahead to what's in front of us for 2025, you said a 30-plus game starting this Friday evening with Limerick Senior Football Championship. It's going to be epic. I think this year more games than ever before, and from my point of view, and I'm sure you'll echo this as well, just can't wait for it to get started. They're starting with the first round of senior football. The following week we're on to Premier Intermediate hurling, and then it just goes from there with the senior from then on, Tom, and plenty in between as well. It's just going to be a massive year ahead for the club championships, and I think it's a bit tricky for some of the footballers who not even a full week out from that Tailteann Cup final, they're out in action. On Thursday evening, for a lot of them straight away, and obviously Friday evening as well, and throughout the weekend, and then they'll get a break for a couple of weeks after that when the hurling kicks in. But yeah, absolutely can't wait.
I was going to say we'll bring our guest in. My mic muted. Billy, you and me are having a stiff competition for the poorest bra band in Ireland today. I think I'm winning that hands down, although you're making a late comeback. How's all in Billy Lee's world at the moment?
Oh, it's good, Tom. Thanks. Yeah, taking it easy and enjoying not being too directly involved with anything at the moment. Do help out with the under-16s and Saturday mornings there, and since then I've taken on just helping out there with the Monaghan ladies. But I stress the word helping in the background, So yeah, all is good. It's just difficult coming from where I work to try and be getting back in time to be taking on teams and all that. It's just too challenging, So we're getting a bit on in age and long in the tooth. So leave it to the young bucks.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, as I said, our broadband, apologies if the audio is a bit choppy, but I think we got the message there. You're enjoying it, taking a little bit of a back seat. Just tell me briefly, you're at the Ladies League final this evening. You're not long in the door, I'd say, from it. Victory from Monaghan into Division 1, and no harm to have a bit of silverware heading back west, I'm sure, from your point of view and from everyone involved in Monaghan at this time of the year.
Yeah, it was. Second half wasn't very much scores in it, but the first half, I think it was something like 2-5 to 5 points at half time, or 2-4 to 4 points, something like that. One of the goals was very fortuitous, probably an error from the LB's keeper. The first goal was a bit dodgy as well, but understandably it was up around the crossbar, where the crossbar met the post, so it was quite difficult for her to get there. But a lot of energy put into it from both teams, going at it, and it was enjoyable to watch, to say the least. And want to get started well at the end. They played with the breeze in the first half, played against it in the second half, and but there was plenty of endeavour from both teams, and I'm sure it's a good game for them to have now as they set into the championship in the coming weeks. It can't be competition. Both there's things that might be good, and you'll always find out about yourself. So I'm sure both teams will take plenty away from it and go back to the training ground and learn.
Yeah, absolutely, and very familiar with each other across the championship level. So we wouldn't rule out the two of them coming eye to eye later in the summer or indeed in the autumn. So congratulations to St. Elby's, and also in Division 2, Father Casey's had a 4-13 to 2-5 victory over St. Bridget's, and in the Division 4 final, Mungers St. Paul's second team beating Knockany second team 4-8 to 2-9. So congratulations to those winners this week. Billy, we came mainly, I suppose, to discuss senior men's football with you. Obviously, your brother Jimmy at the helm at the weekend. I think did I use the word pride there a minute ago? I'm sure you were a proud Limerick man watching on those men in green and white at the weekend, and all they contributed. And look, ultimately, just a couple of points short, but I mean, what a game, what a contest, and Limerick right to the very last. A very, very fancy Kildare side, but just wasn't to be.
Yeah, you're right. You'll be very proud of being up there supporting Limerick. We said it's been said a couple of times, 3 times in the 1 year, and I'd say if you go back before this year, I'd say you have to go back to what we were there in 22, we were there in 12, and I'd say it was 2032 league final against Westmeath. So that was the last 3 that I can remember anyway. And we've done 3 trips to Croke Park. And look, everything's measured by championship, and everything's measured by trips to Croke Park. Ultimately, how well the team is going, and that's your ultimate barometer of any level or any county, you know. And 3 trips in 1 year tells you everything. But that's only half the story. I mean, the style of football they're playing and the coaching level is excellent, exceptional. You know, plenty high scoring in them. I was at the Cork game, Westmeath game, Wexford game, Wicklow, and they've showed plenty of grace and determination when there's a time in a game that had to be shown, and it was never so more evident, I would say, first and foremost in Westmeath. You know, they had been leading, played some wonderful football in the first half and got some great scores against the Breeze, and I suppose heading for 12, 13 minutes to go from time in that game, Westmeath got ahead, and you know the crowd rose up, and I think they've been 2 points ahead, if I'm not mistaken. And by God, no, the boys weren't having it, and up they stepped, and you know, made a couple of switches in as body's tired, and they wrestled back the game. And you know, we saw something similar then against Wexford. Wexford got off to Brosnan, stopped inside. The boys never panicked the first 10 minutes and had a good lead, and then approaching half time, Wexford closed that again and came out the second half and just got on the horse again and just kept going. And 7 points down, 15 minutes to go against Wicklow, maybe 18 minutes or something like that. Okay, got to fly through the score, but you make your own look. You know, over the years, we got easy goals conceded against us. I don't buy that. That's his mistake, and we were there to finish it. Sometimes you're not there, so we got a break. I always believe you make your own look, and you know, we got back in to a 1 point game, and then Josh saves a penalty. So we weren't home and hose just when we got that goal. Josh had to dig it out, and he did. And Keogh got a bit of luck again by off the post into his arms, but we didn't stop there. We went back up the field and pushed on and won the game. So, you know, outside of the style of football and the coaching that's going on, the level of energy and never say die attitude and belief and confidence in the group, it's very evident, you know, and putting up great scores. But I think that's probably contributed by the new rules as well. But playing lovely football, putting up big scores. Unfortunately, on the day, it probably wasn't enough. Interestingly, I think we had 37 shots, and we Kildare had 33.
Yeah,
with 21 scores.
Was it 39 even, I think? 39, 33.
Possibly, you know, there were the numbers I tracked and the program.
Yeah.
You know, so, but like we had a lot
John,
more shots.
Sorry, Billy. John, just to bring you in there, the resilience was the word that I kind of came away with from Croke Park at the weekend. With about 80, 90 seconds left on the clock, bearing in mind now there is no stoppage time, it is just on the hooter. Limerick were 4 points down, and I was thrown in the towel myself. I said we're kind of cooked here, but Limerick get a point, work it in, could have had a penalty in my view, potentially for a foot block, but got the free, scored that, and then, you know, made absolute carnage of the Kildare kick out and worked a goal opportunity. I think it was Dara Murray had the shot, good save by the goalkeeper, and then Rory O'Brien just very unlucky with his rebound, you know, a complete snapshot. I think that 70 or 80 seconds probably epitomised everything that is about this Limerick team. Billy touched on it there. They just haven't thrown in the towel in any contest, even against Cork when they were down to 14. They kept coming and like that really does augur well for the future, and it probably just shows the I suppose the togetherness that's in this group.
Yeah, Tom, resilience is echoed all over that team from my view. You go back to the early stages of the league. I think we were in McNeville Park for the original Wexford game, and it just seemed like Limerick hadn't adapted to the rules, just the new rule enhancements, as they're called, or whatever they want to call them at this stage. But throughout the league, that win in London, I think you had the stat on the day that you'd be able to regurgitate it quicker than me, but how long Limerick were without a win, you know, it was in the league. It was going back to Billy's time as manager, I think in 22, if I'm not mistaken, you know, up to that stage, obviously with no success. Yeah, so you know, it goes back to that win in London. It goes back to beating Carlow down in Carlow. Never easy games to win away from home, the National Football League, no matter what division you're in, you know. And then, as Billy rightly pointed out, the standard of football Limerick were playing, the speed at which they attacked and in transition has just been a joy to behold. And some of the scores, we only have to look back to James Naughton's total. It was a 4-12 against Waterford in the game, the win that sealed promotion for Limerick. So resilience, absolutely, but you would be at pains to mention the amount of excellent forward play, excellent defensive work, some of the defensive work, around the edge of the new scoring arc, and the work rate put in from a defensive standpoint, and then one of the biggest things for me, and you've heard it mentioned in parts, was the absolute, it hasn't been highlighted for me enough, the amount of injuries that this team had. To have a whole full back line from the league final going into the latter stages of the Tailteann Cup. I know Mark McCarthy had been playing out in the wing. Darren O'Doherty, a vastly experienced player at club level. Jason Hassett in his first year as a senior footballer with his county and was only under 20s last year. So, for that alone, losing the likes of Colin McSweeney, Cormac Wolfe, et al., they're good solid players that had done very, very well in the league up to that point, to win. Injury stroke and Faker Cotter as well was the other one in that line. So the fact that Jimmy and his backroom team then, outside of having those injuries to contend with, Billy mentioned the Wicklow game, when Limerick came back, they were without at that stage Ian Corbett gone injured, Emmett Richter gone injured, and James Naughton, who'd been setting the world on light from a scoring point of view, gone injured off the field as well, and still managed, to reverse what looked to be a very, very winning position from Wicklow. So resilience is echoed all over that team. I'll repeat it again, but from the management point of view, to have full trust in the panel, and that was echoed again. You did see the likes of Rory O'Brien come on. Darren Murray has made huge steps in senior football for Limerick this year off the bench. He'll be another year older next year with at least 2 games in Croke Park, behind him. So, I mentioned Mark McCarthy there as well, another one of the younger guns. It's just been a very, very important year for Limerick football and something to build on, not just for next year either. And Jimmy has been saying, and Billy said it long before him, they're not there for that time itself. They're there for the longevity of Limerick football. And my God, hopefully some seeds have been sown this year.
Yeah. Billy, the game itself, Limerick started well. They got that goal from Emmett Richter's rebound, fell to Killian Fahey. In fairness, he finished it fairly emphatically. Limerick went from 3 up, though, to 7 down in, it seemed like, double quick time. They took on water quite heavily in that period, but again, managed to steady the ship, got it back to 4 at half time. I suppose crucially, maybe from Kildare's point of view, they kicked that score on the hooter as well when Limerick had turned the ball back over. But that started the second half. Maybe it was just after the goal where Limerick was, I wouldn't say the losing of the game, but maybe the not winning the game, if you know what I mean. They just didn't ram home the advantage after Killian Ryan's goal, in my opinion. There was just maybe a couple of shots that just didn't go to plan, Sorry?
Yeah. Yeah, that was the second goal. Like the first goal I felt that we got. The first goal we got, I felt it. It kind of gave Kildare a shot in the arm. They said, "Whoa, hold on a second. This isn't going to be as straightforward as we might have thought." And they went on a bit of a scoring spree at that stage. And now, in fairness to young Byrne, he stuck the goal quite emphatically. It was a classy finish. He placed it and he passed it into the net from maybe 22 or 3 yards. And that was a really classy goal. And they went they go to 6 points up at one point. They slipped back and we got back into the game. But I remember but again, the boys responded in South the first half quite well. They dominated the play, they slowed it down, they got on the ball, they kept it. With all due respect to Kildare, they I don't know what it is about them. Do they lose concentration or what? But they seem to be, there was no pressure on the ball, there was nothing, and they were happy just to be sitting off us. But of course, that allowed the lads to. We were vulnerable at that stage, having gone from maybe 2 points up to 7 points down or something like that. So that was the time to press on top of us, and they seemed to be happy to hold back. And they were playing with the breeze, in the gentle breeze that was there at that stage. So anyway, that's what they did. And I just remember met at half time, and we were chatting about it. And I just said, if we're going to score on a goal in the second half, I hope it's in the last 10 minutes because. It just seemed that our first goal seemed to spur them into action, and I think we had a couple of chances. Killian, I think, and Danny probably dropped too short when we were 2 points up. And if they'd gone over, I'll tell you now, we're talking a different game here, and we're talking a different mentality because our lads would have just driven because they were doing that anyway. But now Kildare had a bigger obstacle to hurdle to jump, and I'm not sure they were capable of jumping that. Now, McLaughlin off the bench, they made he backed up his semi-final performance off the bench. Tailteann was that Clancy. But I'll tell you, if we'd gone 4 points up, I ain't so sure the Tailteann Cup would be above there, and I'd say we'd be county having a good time with ourselves, But the lads showed a lot of resilience. Worked for the last, very, very unlucky, like by Rory. It was just a free hand came out and touched it over. So, look, I've gone from the day where they're honourable defeats in Limerick. It's no longer about that. There's too much work being done across the football organisation in Limerick. So it's time now to be trying to get it on. But like you said, the lads up there, they play on the front foot. I work in Kerry, and a lot of people be asking me and talking about it, and how well they are. But of course, because they watch anything below what Kerry play, so people don't really know what we're capable of. But there's lots of footballers in Limerick all our lives. We just probably don't have the depth. And I can go right back to it's about this and name names, and there it's just maybe it's more. If you look at the people who've gone through Limerick football in the fortune of many years, you're talking about the likes of Donny Buckley, Cian O'Neill, Adrian O'Brien. And I've no doubts that the boys that are currently going through it will go on to further and better again. We've really had great people involved, and Liam Kelvin's got to be good to Liam, So, it's there. We have footballers. We're more organised. We just need to go the extra mile now to get ourselves over the line in these big games. And I think that's incumbent on all of us. That's not just the current management. It's bigger than that. I think it's just the organisation, and we just got to keep working on it. It's great. We've 3 of the minors in the minor final on that squad. Darren Murray, Emmett Richter and Canala Dunn. All right, they're 3 off that Munster minor panel. And if you start thinking back, hurling has never been stronger. I mean, we've won 5 All-Irelands in the last number of years in hurling, and we're only 7 up to that. So arguably it's our best generation of hurling of all time. And in that period of time, we've had a lot of, good days out with the Limerick footballers, 2 Division 4 titles in a Division 3 final, got them out to Division 2, Munster minor final, Munster senior final, McGrath Cup, beat Cork in the final. The under-16s won 2 competitions as well, not too many years ago. So, to hold it when we're at our best and holding is telling you the amount of work that people are doing on the ground and the effort and energy and investment that's gone in it. So look, more to do, but we mustn't forget. And obviously, that's Saturday just really put it on a pedestal for everyone to look and take note. And look, please God, we can just continue to work on the ground, and people will get involved at club level and keep developing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I when you list out all the achievements there, you kind of start to remember what has gone on, and you're right to name check some of those people. And I know Liam Kearns was probably foremost in people's mind when you're thinking back to our last time in an All-Ireland final, obviously 2000 with the 21s. And look, it's great to bridge that gap, but I suppose moral victories now need to be set aside. And you're right, maybe start putting a bit more silverware on the sideboard. And I suppose, Billy, going forward, the key, we've changed divisions in the league from your time, obviously 2020 and 2022. There was two promotions and then 2 relegations, and now promoted again. I suppose it needs to be a steady incline now rather than, maybe jumping up a division, jumping down a division. I suppose we need to, an incremental improvement maybe over the next couple of years, and keep this group together as well, because chopping and changing large panels largely it's not in the best interest of what, as you said, there's maybe overall a smaller pool of talent as well in the county.
I think why more play at the time. On the same club,
Connection just dropped slightly there to Billy a second. I'll see can I get him back in. But John, just to put that point to you about it's great that we're back promoted for 2026. But I mean, it's a lot of division changes now, and it's maybe just even if a consolidation next year and then promotion maybe the year after might be the target potentially. I'm only looking at it from the outside at that.
Yeah, it's a valid point. I've talking to a few people this week that there was maybe even a suggestion that maybe 2 or 3 years in Division 3, sustainable, sustain yourself there for a year or two and then maybe push for Division 2 and go further afield from there. But player retention has been the biggest issue for a number of years. They had it, in Billy's time up to 2022, 23. After he left, they kind of went off the radar a little bit from that point of view. But I think it's critical. The biggest thing for me this year, Tom, I'll repeat it again, is the influx of youth. You can't. Billy mentioned it with the three, Emmett Richter, Darren Murray and Conor O'Dwyn. From that 2018 team that got to the Munster final, losing to Cork and Thurles. It's massively important that the academy pathway that we've seen so successful in hurling, on the hurling front, that has yielded 5 All-Irelands, that there's no reason why that can't follow through in football. I'm not talking about winning All-Irelands, I'm talking about the amount of players coming through our underage systems into the senior setup, because that is what underage systems are all about. We've been at pains over the years on the podcast mentioning that success at under 17 minor level and under 20s level and under 21s before that. Great, yeah, winning titles, it's fantastic, but it's how many players you can get to play in senior is what's massive. And once Limerick continue to do that, getting players back, and maybe, Tom, a few of the players that didn't opt in this year, maybe looking from beyond the ditch, going, maybe I should have answered Jimmy's call and answered Micheál Cahill's call to join the panel for 2025. They missed out on one hell of a journey, so maybe they'll be easier coaxed in 2026 if indeed that call is made again. Maybe a few other players that have been thereabouts and maybe not given the full commitment in the last few years, maybe they're in with a chance of rejoining a panel for 2026. But yeah, they're the big question marks for Limerick football as an organisation have to look at. That they've been given a pathway this year that maybe they've never got as much attention. Limerick senior football, certainly, with those 3 visits to Croke Park, with those high score lines. I remember coming back from McNeville after James Naughton scored that. He was the talk of RT and Newstalk that afternoon, with plenty of other huge Division 1 games on. It was all the talk about James Naughton and his scoring habits and the scores Limerick were racking up at that stage of the league. So they're all positives, Tom, and looking ahead to 2026, we're not going to fully do that now, but you'd hope that A, the majority of that panel is retained, and B, that you can add a hell of a few more names on top of it from a youth perspective, hopefully as well, but from guys that maybe opted out on top of that once more as well.
Yeah, Billy, I think we have you again. But I suppose
I'm definitely
maybe
Tom. I'm definitely winning the battle now.
I don't know if you heard much of that there, but I suppose maybe my overall point is we don't want a boom bust nature with Limerick football. We have to, I suppose what we have we hold, and see can we build on top of that year on year, and maybe a bit like Clare and a bit like Loud in recent years, see can we get up there, but not, let's walk before we can run. And I don't mean that to patronise anyone, but we don't want to start to suffer 2 relegations back to back, for example, in any time soon.
No, look, I think what you find, it's pretty simple in the past. It kind of happened, after I went as well. We kind of form a club nearly scene within the, and you bring fellas together. We built it up there over a couple of years, and the way it worked was that we made ground going forward. I didn't want to lose that ground, and I remember probably one of the most pressurised games I was involved with in my years was the home game in Division 3 in 2020 or 2021 when the COVID was going. It was the only home game, and the Division 3 was split in 2. And I knew if we didn't beat Tip at home, you were on the back foot. We went to Wicklow after and won that, and made sure we were on the top end, because we played a semi-final against. But, we'd made ground. We'd worked hard to make that ground, and we wanted to sustain it. This is important for Jimmy and the lads next year, like that in Division 3, because the better quality.
Oh, he's gone again. But I'll see can I get it back again. I tell you, John, this is the power of technology, or the lack thereof. I think his point maybe was that you get to Division 3, you just what you have, you hold. 1 second now. Do I have him back in the background? But see, can I get him on here? I tell you, one last shot for you. Billy, you're back. Right. So go on. Division 3. Talk to me.
You hear me?
I can't work away.
So I was saying, look, staying in Division 3 is really important. Better games, higher quality. Lads enjoy the bigger games, playing the better teams, the challenge themselves. And I think, the group that are there, somewhere or other, we've got to make them realise that it's about the jersey as opposed to Jimmy and his management team being a group. They go, some of these lads will go. It's important that they're playing for Limerick football. They're not playing for the manager, me included. You're playing for the jersey. You're playing for the county. You're representing people. And we would have spoke about that, the importance of the jersey to people. I remember a story we secured. We were guaranteed not to be involved in a relegation in 2022, and we beat Laois above in Port Laois. And it just tells you the importance of it. And I've said this to the under-16s when we've had them, and it's really important that people understand this. God be good to Dennis Holmes. He rang me that Saturday and we coming down the bus. I was absolutely delighted, right? Then he died 5 days later. But that meant a lot to him that, Limerick football was going well. And that's the significance of the jersey to people. Okay, we might get the range or the scope to support it, but the holding has. It doesn't matter. There's a lot of people out there who want it to go well. So when we put on that jersey, those people, and no matter what condition they're where they are, dead or alive, and that's what we just got to ensure people understand that people are very proud of people wearing the jersey, and there's a lot to be gained for playing in the county, and all them things make a difference. We would understand what playing the county. It isn't just about winning medals. There's a lot we gain out of it, and achievement and challenges, and just to sell the story about why it's important to but if I vote if the lads continue in the jersey to go, probably they're going. I can't see them being in Division 3 next year. Whether they lose a player or two, I think it's fair to say.
He's gone there. I think he was going to say that they've developed. I might be putting words in his mouth, but John, they've definitely developed a squad this year. We touched on it with the injuries. They managed to have players that were able to step up, develop the squad, and I suppose that's the key now. Is we're not just relying on 15. There is a squad in place there for next season, no matter who comes and goes or retires or whatever reason they depart the scene.
Yeah, absolutely, Tom. I go back to that Wexford League final. We were both at. I think I remember the two inside forwards that day were. Was it Dara Shawcrew, and I can't remember who the other was now, just off the top of my head. But I remember Peter Nash and Danny Neville.
Peter Nash didn't start.
No, Peter Nash and Danny Neville came off the bench. And I remember I was saying in commentary, myself and Tommy Stack were commentating on the game for local radio, and I remember saying at the time, what a luxury to have the likes of Danny Neville and Peter Nash and to come off the bench in the final quarter. To get Limerick over the line as it worked out in that sense, with players having run themselves into the ground. But, Danny Neville and Peter Nash were arguably Limerick's two best forwards, last Saturday in the Tailteann Cup final. So it just shows there's a strength and depth there now within the squad that's there. We spoke about the likes of Colin McSweeney, Fikar Cotter, Cormac Wolfe, not playing really any part of the Tailteann Cup due to injury. Dara Shawcrew, the same thing, had an outstanding league campaign for Limerick this year, and then was beset by a long-term injury, hopefully, and well on the road to recovery. And you just look all over the field at likes of Andrew Mead making an impact, Sean Clancy, albeit in very, very difficult circumstances, obviously, as it transpired with the tragic passing of his mother. Before that Wexford game, he made an impact. Unfortunately, against Cork, he looked 2 yellow cards in red, but another player coming onto the scene, Tom, and it happened, so often this year that someone put their hands up. You mentioned Rory O'Brien, so unlucky not to get what would have went down in folklore if you've managed to turn that one into the net, and so it was so close. So many positives, but that strength and depth seems to be there. Like Darren O'Doherty's a guy that's been knocking around. I've mentioned him already. What a performance throughout the Tailteann Cup campaign, so many players that put their hands up for Limerick senior football this year. And you just have to hope there's so many who will do the same next year within that squad. And Tom, you and I have both been involved in different sports over the years. There's nothing better than competition for places. It breeds success. It breeds continuity. It breeds everything positive you could wish for. And that was so evident this year with Limerick senior football team, and long may it continue.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I think usually when you start listing off some of the players, you'd even forget maybe the amount of players that played this year. I did see it on Twitter the other day. Was it 34 players? I think Limerick used. The league and championship. I wish I had the graphic to hand here now, and I won't take credit for it either. But that's phenomenal. The net was cast wide. There's had to be a lot of imports of players. Say I've just misplaced it there now, but the key, and I think 33. Yeah, you saw the same thing I saw. But the key, John, is to make this sustainable for Limerick into the future in terms of like that we don't lose 16 players like we did last season. And my connection is jumping around again. But that there's a continued
impression again we get out with what you put into. It's like a walk of life.
Okay, John. Numerous technical difficulties at my end. I don't think it's your end anyway. I'll be ringing my broadband provider fairly promptly tomorrow. Just, I suppose, to wrap the Limerick season, John, to win 5 championship games, to get promoted from the league, I mean, that's probably beyond anyone's expectations. I don't care what anyone says. Yes, Limerick did come down the division to go straight back up. So look, probably not a huge shock that they got promoted again, but the manner of the performances, the unearthing of some gems of players like Jason Hassett, probably one that wouldn't have been on my radar for senior involvement this year. And it has been a very, very positive season for Jimmy and company.
Yeah, I'd even disagree with you, Tom. I don't think anyone was expecting Limerick, given their low ebb, last year, to come straight back up, from Division 4. Certainly weren't one of the favourites. They weren't up with Wexford, Wicklow, and maybe third or fourth beyond that. So I did think that achievement alone, take the Tailteann Cup away from it, to recover from the draw against Longford early on, the defeat to Wexford after that, and then, to go on and win the rest of their games was a huge achievement in that sense, to earn promotion, finishing second behind Wexford, who were the standout team in Division 4 throughout the group phase, and then to go up to Croke Park, as we previously mentioned, and pull off what was an exceptional victory against a very fancied Wexford side, was just phenomenal. It really, really was. It was one of the highlights of certainly my time covering Limerick GAA. It was such an enjoyable to win in Croke Park. It's one thing, like Limerick have been there, as Billy mentioned earlier, like a few times, losing to Louth in 22, very tight game, but it was invariably in defeat. And coming out of Croke Park, getting there is great, but you always want to win in Croke Park, and to do that twice out of the 3 times you played there in 1 year, bring the Tailteann Cup back into it, to get to that Tailteann Cup final, the visuals, Tom, of the league win over Wexford, the semi-final win over Wicklow, and the manner of that victory, and coming back when losing probably your 3 most important players, that's probably been harsh, but I think people know what I'm getting at in Corbett, Emmett Richter, and James Naughton, up to that point in the league, or up to that point in the Tailteann Cup, and then giving Kildare an unmerciful game and coming so close to pulling off that Tailteann Cup final victory. It'll certainly, in 20 odd years' time, Limerick people, and maybe a good few outside the county as well, will remember it as a great year for Limerick football.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think we can optimistically look at the Tailteann Cup next season for Limerick, and indeed Division 3. And look, I said to someone the other day, I think Limerick are more likely to get promoted out of Division 3 with the momentum they have than maybe they are to regress back to Division 4. Certainly at this early out point, I think that we can say that. But anyway, look, congratulations all on a very enjoyable season following them. Thanks for all that, I suppose. Next, something a little bit different. A colleague of ours in the media may be familiar. Some people certainly after the weekend. I'm going to bring him in. the studio now. It's Maurice Brosnan of the Irish Examiner. Maurice, how are you? I hope your broadband is better than mine, because mine is pretty bad.
Yeah, all good, lads. Yeah, how would you?
All good, all good. Now, I suppose a bit of background about yourself. You're a Galway man. You've watched our hurlers and footballers and indeed many other counties in the last couple of years in your role with the Irish Examiner. You didn't get the keys to the Gaelic grounds. I'd say it'd be hard enough to get them, but you did get in behind the curtain, as it were, and you've a fantastic piece, if I do say so, on the Irish Examiner over the weekend. And I think they put it back up over the weekend. And I suppose the title, if anyone hasn't seen this, Maurice Brosnan asked to shadow Limerick's Tailteann Cup prep, warts and all, and here's what happened. And it's I don't know how many words it is. It's a phenomenal read, and I'd encourage anyone that wants to know about intercounty, even if it's for themselves, generally, in terms of if it's for their son or daughter, maybe, and what's now being done, or even if they're involved in the club team, to see where the intercounty game has gone to. A very enjoyable experience, Maurice, and something I'm sure you felt privileged to be involved in and allowed to do by Jimmy and Co.
Yeah, that's the word, Tom. Exactly. It was professionally and personally a complete privilege. I'm very lucky to get the chance to do it. Like, you've been very kind there, but in some ways I'm kind of, sometimes you feel like, yeah, I did well with that article, I nailed it. That's the nature of our industry, as I'm sure to you the same. This one is like, the credit has to go to, all I did was write what I saw, like literally. The credit should go to Jimmy, really, and to Micheál Cahill and Paran and Nevin Talty for what they have built there. I thought it was the ultimate demonstration of how good they know their setup is, and the backing that they have, that they're willing to say, we'll let you in and have a look at it. Like, just the trust that I think there's certain managers who maybe will tell you that they keep things very tight for a reason, and the reality is that maybe, is their setup as good, even in a county game? Is it as good as it should be? That's arguable, but Limerick clearly knew that they built something, as I just heard you talking there about the season they've had. Like, they built something pretty remarkable this year, and they were willing to open the door and let people see how that happens, what should happen next, why they're deserving of people rolling behind them and getting a bit more wider support, and why, if there's any players looking on from the outside in, saying, why would you not want to be part of a setup like that? So for all of those reasons, I just was very, very grateful, really, that they were willing to let me in the way they were. And like, zero limitations, lads. Like, they were just so accommodating, to the extent where everything is open to you. Whatever you want to see, you can see. And thankfully, yeah, it all came together. I was over in New York for the Keogh Taylor fight on Saturday morning now, so I was watching it over there. But the perfect ending would have been if they won it. Like, I'd hold my hands up, I'd admit it freely. I really wanted to see Limerick win that game, just purely because, for several reasons, I suppose a lot of people will say, but just for when you've seen the amount of work that's gone into it, and I mean how close they came. For all those reasons, I was sleep deprived and up at all hours, but I was still rolling at an iPad screen and hoping that when they're coming down towards the back end, 4 points down, that we might at least force extra time.
Yeah. John, we think we know a lot from our position. We know maybe a fraction or two more than some supporters. We think we know, but to actually see inside, and even the Micheál Cahill piece in that, where he gave a Kildare team top, I'd never heard that being done in any sport. Maybe I don't pay attention enough, but like, I'd never seen something like that done. It's very interesting. Like, if you were, sitting in the dressing room and the manager was saying, well, what are the other lads saying about you? And, even like that Emmett Richter, for example, I think the example you used, Maurice, is that Emmett Richter is quite, when he gets the ball standing
Exactly
slowly, that's what Kildare want. Or maybe Peter Nash further from goal out in the front of the tee. So, John, it's phenomenal that we get to see how counties are now approaching things, and how Micheál Cahill and Co have, how they approach things. It's definitely not the same across all 32 counties, but like, this is how Limerick do it, and this is what's worked for them in 2025.
Yeah, you said it in your intro, Tom, looking in behind the curtain, and Maurice's piece definitely gave us mere mortals, that haven't got to the inter-county standard, that we don't get the experience that at senior level. I remember talking to a couple of people in Clare when Micheál Cahill came back to coach in Limerick. He was S&C with Clare for a few years under Micheál Cahill, and all the talk of it was so positive. Again, Maurice will be able to attest to this further than us. We've spoken to Micheál a couple of times. We obviously know Jimmy and Paran more. Evan Tailteann's had a very good reputation for a long time as well, and I know there's a few more within that coaching setup as well. But yeah, to see in behind, to get to be given, from Maurice's point of view, fantastic piece of work, obviously, and we're at pains to say that as well. You know, you would have to give credit where that's due. But for an inter-county team that look, from our point of view, we're selfish in media. We want all the access we can possibly get, more than we're ever going to be given. But for so little of it, we're seeing at times, and this isn't all across all the way now, but we're seeing at times as very much the enemy. We don't want to tell them anything that will give someone else, you know, an unfair advantage or one up on us and something to pin to the dressing room wall. I think that day is gone. That day is long, long past. You know, so many more of the players that I've spoken to, maybe off mic and off camera, and I'm sure it's the same for you, Tom and Maurice as well. They want to engage further in media, but they're kind of restrained a bit more. You know, so to see a piece like this out in the open, and brilliantly done again by Maurice, you know, but to be given, and I think Maurice has hit the nail on the head with it, the trust in their own setup and what they're putting forward to their players, for that to be seen, you know, is it the same everywhere? Of course not. Everyone has their own different ways of coaching and different ways of getting their messages across to players. But from our point of view, as being, you know, adjacent to Limerick, you know, with the hurlers and football, you know, they've always been very accommodating, Maurice. I'm sure you found that when doing your piece as well. And, you know, I think it's just brilliant to see something that is so secret to be laid out for everyone else to see. It's just phenomenal from our point of view to get that kind of insight.
Yeah, Maurice, were you surprised with what you saw, or was it, you know, maybe, I know you've been involved in teams yourself down here, but were you surprised with how Limerick approached things, or was a lot of this new to you even?
I was surprised by what I saw, in that it was a shining example to me of how to maximize every single resource that's at your disposal, which is ultimately that's the game, right? Like, you're trying to get the most out of everything that you have, but you know, it's a relatively, it's not even relative, it's a small coaching ticket, and how they were able to just make sure that every single element of their game model, their mission statements, their training structure was thought about, and the amount of consideration that went into basically everything was definitely a surprise to me. But again, you know, what John said there is very interesting, and I think he's 100% spot on. Like, I'm going to be accused of saying this for selfish reasons, because it suited me to be able to write an article like this. And, you know, there's an element of that's true. Like, that it's far more enjoyable for me to spend a couple of days in the Limerick camp than it is to write press conference quotes on a Monday and Tuesday. Like, that is the obvious reality. But I'm adamant that it's also win-win. Like, there is, when you see this from, like, did anybody, I can't tell you, I won't break any confidence here now, but like, some of the best coaches in the country, I'm like, renowned names now, the people everybody listening here would know, are on about that article and how much they took away from it and how much they enjoyed it, and small little things that they actually want to look, maybe to get in contact with some people involved in that ticket to learn more about, so they can bring back for themselves. Like, so as a setup, that's a massive win for them, that they see prove the level that they're at. I think for the players' perspective, there's an element of sympathy is not the word, but empathy. When you understand how much they have put in to get to the level they're at, and just the levels they're operating on, like whether it be the speed they're capable of hitting or the stuff that they're doing in training, the amount that it's just inevitable for normal, decent GA fans. It definitely does enamor you to players more. Like, you have a lot more understanding of what they're going through, of what it takes to get on the pitch. I didn't put it in the article now because it wasn't the most relevant thing, but like, it was definitely noticeable to me, all right, the couple of nights that I was down there for training. Emmett Richter was doing nothing. Like, you know, he wasn't able to run. Like, he was doing a lot of boxing work on the sideline, but he wasn't able to get himself to that level on the pitch. Now, I think, like, in my head, I was looking at his performance on the weekend through that prism, and nearly thinking, I think, do other people appreciate what it took for him to get on the pitch here? Like, some of the lads are putting themselves through torture to just get to this level. And sure, if we, as a collective now, and not journalists, like, we as the outside get more of appreciation of that, is that not a good thing? Like, is it not? It does not benefit all of us that we're able to say, geez, like, I'd be a lot slower to slate that fella because I saw the level that he was trying to get to and what he's capable of and what it takes to get to the stage that they got to. So my personal take is I think it suits everybody if people go about it in good faith. And I just got very lucky that I got a management team that were just, to a man, like, enormously accommodating and willing to talk in a way that a lot of other management teams aren't willing to talk, and to do things that other management teams are willing to do, and they deserve enormous credit for that.
Yeah, that empathy piece is actually, just, as you were saying, that's something that popped into my head about it. I'll come to that in a second. But Emmett Richter, he did play well. I don't think he was at, certainly, I'm no expert, but he didn't look fully fit. And maybe when you hear that, it kind of tallies. He did kick 2 points. He was involved in a lot of play. But like myself and John have been at nearly all the Limerick football games this year. He normally plays a lot deeper for periods, and we just didn't see that the weekend. So clearly he was playing restricted to his own ability, and myself and Matt, who normally are on this show, we every time Limerick play, we seem to be singing that man's praise. Just such a young talent, and like we kind of don't want anyone else to know about him in a way. I know it's at the Tailteann Cup team of the year last year, but I mean, his stock will only rise, I think, and hopefully he'll get back to full fitness. But even when you have your ear on the ground, as you did the other day, like I've often heard Limerick hurling fans, and this I'm using the hurling example because it's a common one I would have heard, and John, you'll definitely have heard this around Limerick. When Graham Mulcahy was regularly starting games, there was an awful lot of criticism. He doesn't score, he is lazy enough, he doesn't do this, he doesn't do that. But we don't know what his role is within the setup. Graham Mulcahy's role, I would think anyway, from having watched a lot of games, was never to score, or not never to score, but that wasn't his primary objective. It was to go out, make a certain amount of hooks, tackles and blocks, be disruptive, and then freed up the play then for the likes of Peter Casey, as was the case for a couple of seasons, to come in. But often people don't know that. They don't know what Graham Mulcahy was asked to do. And again, I don't know that. I'm just presuming. But we just don't know what has been said in the dressing room or said in a team talk, for these players. And that's perhaps the piece that I think one of the main takeaways I'd have from it is that we need to stop assuming things about players and what they're being asked to do, what they're capable of doing in the case of Emmett Richter, yeah, I don't know where to go with that point, but I think it's very important.
I think that's a deadly point. Even tactically, to get that was again, you're trying to strike a balance with a piece like this. Like, you don't want it to be pure, all tactical, or you don't want it to be all the players themselves and their story. So you're trying to satisfy a couple of different camps there. But to see the role designation that goes on in a setup like Limerick, so for me to see, if you're Barry Coleman, you are labelled as a big C, and big C means you're a big carrier, and that's your role, that you can carry the ball, but it also means everybody else knows your role, in which case get out of his way. If he's one-on-one, he's going to burn somebody, so clear out and let. So there is, they under, this is an obvious thing to say, I suppose, in some ways. They understand their roles far better than we do. That's, and again, it's, I just was very grateful to be able to see the amount of thought that goes into stuff like that goes into their own kick out, that to the extent where, there was a bit of I mentioned it in the piece, there was a bit of laughter in the room maybe when they realised that the Wicklow analysts had put up all of their kick out data on social media after the semi-final before the game. But it also gave those Limerick lads a bit of confidence in that they saw, this person put up everything they put, which is their right to do. I suppose they want to boast their work. Limerick had more work done. They knew they had a much more depth and much more understanding of their own kick out than what the opposition did. And can you imagine the power in that? To be able to see, we know what our opposition doing, and we know that what we have is better. You get a very clear sense of the faith that they have in their group. Honestly, lads, I was looking around me, how do I find a place what role could I do in here to be part of a setup like this? It was just, that was my sense the whole day. How could you? And I think that definitely should be the. Part of me was kind of wondering, and maybe I'll write about this next. What they've achieved is phenomenal. What happens next is equally as important, and there is definitely an element of that. That look, strike while the iron is hot here. Look how brilliant this setup can be, and how do we make sure to get that to a level where Limerick could be the Loud Footballers or Cullen Collins Clare, and establish us as a consistent Division 2 team, for argument's sake, because everything I saw would indicate to me that they're more than capable of that.
Yeah, and Maurice, did you get a sense? We're talking about tactics there, and game model as a phrase was used and stuff like that. Do you get a sense that it's fun, as in there's a fun group and there's a good vibe about the place? Because those guys are together. I think Barry Coleman said it in the piece I did for him for the Irish Independent, that it's the tightest group he's ever been in. And look, that could be a throwaway comment. That could be something, it sounds the right thing to say. And I will take him. I'll take him at face value, of course, when he says it. But you get the sense that these lads actually like each other. These lads want to play for each other, and everything they're doing for the betterment of each other. We see that with successful teams. Oh, we're all best friends, but like Limerick haven't really been truly successful until maybe this season. Is probably the most success we've seen in a long time on the field. So what was your sense of that?
Well, you can manufacture that too, and I think it's not a reflection necessarily on anybody. It's nobody's fault really. But post COVID, Jimmy had told me that the nutrition company they had up until last year was one of those nutrition companies that would come with boxed food, like it's stuff that it's all nicely packaged and like ready meals basically. But people got into a habit post COVID of after training grabbing their food and heading off out the door. Like you had the lunchbox and that was the way it was. And he put a stop to that at the start of the year and decided that no, we're eating together as a group. We're only plating up, so literally, fork and knife and a plate, and all of us in a big line like a buffet. And this John Ryan serves up the food, and there's a bit of crack in the room, and you're not allowed to sit beside your clubmate or somebody similar age of you. So there's a lot of different dynamics in the room. But it's just a simple way of developing that unity that you're referencing there. And I mean, that was Killian Fahey told me like it got to a stage where there'll just be lads dropping group messages into their group where there's anybody around Rockkeele for a coffee, that they just naturally got a lot more closer. And now there's like there's friends and then there's teammates, and there definitely is an element where like I got to see some footage of maybe the internal games they played recently. They played an over 25s versus an under 25s game, which is they're trying to put twists on challenges to always keep this stuff competitive. So like there was a West Limerick thing versus the rest. There was but then they played this over 25s versus under 25s, and Michael Cahill was in the middle of Ian Corbett and Peter Nash and telling them, listen, I was like, you're just minding the jersey for these boys here. Like they're coming up behind you. You're on the way back down the mountain. You're heading towards retirement. Don't. I'm sure it was like a red flag. Like it was vicious. Like it was like they were tearing strips out of each other. It isn't that great. Like you need, if you can drive that sort of competitiveness. I can imagine like Limerick are turning down challenges from people from the outside because they know the challenges they'll get internally. Like internal challenges are way more competitive and way more furious. So they struck the balance of that right. But that's intentional, Tom. Like they management themselves set out to generate that, and it's a credit to them that they're able to have players coming back to you and tell you about the bond that has become, because it doesn't happen by accident. Like all of this stuff is just a very slick setup. Like there's thought that goes into all of this stuff.
Yeah, I tell you, I'd pay good money to see that West versus the rest match.
I'd pay more money to see the over 25s versus under.
I don't know the West versus the rest. There's a certain appeal to that now for me.
If I can cut in, just on Maurice's point, one of the league games this year, I can't remember which one. I happened to actually stumble into the room. It was under the stand in McNeville Park, and the dressing rooms weren't fully sorted at that stage. Maurice, not everything is fully done in McNeville Park as of yet. It's close to being done, or it's probably done at this stage. But I happened to walk into the room where the lads were eating. I was just looking for the bathroom and went into the wrong room. And you could exactly sense, it may have been a Waterford game, it may have been one of the earlier ones, but that sense of crack and, sense of fun. And I wasn't aware even with the lads sitting differently or anything like that. But as you'd expect, anyone that knows of Stephen Lucy was central to that. And I think you would have experienced that in your time with them as well. But there was a genuine sense of togetherness there. Now, look, myself and Tom have been covering Limerick football for a good few years now, 8-9 years in my case, and not far off from Tom as well. And I think, rightly or wrongly, and wrongly, you'd hope to be a dual county, everyone's treated equally, but Limerick's hurling success has dwarfed that completely of what the footballers done. So it's relative success for the footballers. But I've always found that the wins mean more. This isn't, having to go at hurling or anything, of course. Like we're just as big hurling fans as well. But Limerick, I remember to be Tipperary in, what was it, 21 or it was 19? I can't even remember the exact year in Thurles.
19 it was, yeah. First win in Munster in about 6 years or something, wasn't it, at the time?
And the joy on the field that day in Thurles. I remember Brian Begley was one of the coaches with Billy Lee that year, and I was interviewing Brian after. And Brian was such a dual star for Limerick in both hurling and football. And he was in tears nearly. Like it meant absolutely everything to each one of those players. And every year since, they've had some wins and some bad ones in 23 and 24, 2 very tough years. So the wins just seem to mean so much. And without that, seen as a lesser team, rightly or wrongly. Again, I say it, within the county, but that there's the bond with the supporters as well, which is something we've really seen, I think, this year, is so clear. I remember being on the field after the beat Westmeath in Portlaoise, huge win for Limerick. And again, it was just like they'd won another trophy. They'd won something massive. They'd won an All-Ireland. It meant that much. Every single win means so much more because of where football is up against hurling this county at times.
Well, they've ended up winning 10 games this year, isn't it? 10, 5 in the league and 5 in the championship. So like that's literally unprecedented for Limerick. Maurice, where do you see that, if that group can keep the 90+% together? Do you see them going from strength to strength? And if you don't see that, please tell us. But I suppose that's the sense I get, that the upward trajectory should continue into next year. What it is now is another story. But they have the foundations laid this season.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. Like the capability, everything I saw would indicate that. And even just watching from, the reason you do this job and you watch teams from afar, and some teams do stuff that would be of interest to you. And that's kind of how I started following this Limerick team, was, you spot stuff during the league. Like, geez, they look very well set up in that regard. And naturally you develop an affinity with them. So, and you keep an eye, and it led to getting through this piece. So absolutely, I see the capability of that. I would say though, like, not to go completely cynical about this, but if you ask me, like, what's the number one thing that has Limerick where they are, and this is looking from the outside in, from my own limited perspective, and I'm sure you'd have more thoughts on this than I do, but looking from the outside in and everything that I saw in the day, it's, in a word, it's people. Like, they've phenomenal people involved, and it's not structures like that, and I know that sounds maybe slightly cutting, but that was the reality that I saw. Like, it is like a phenomenal manager, great coaches, unbelievable Limerick to the bone people involved in every single element. And while they're there, that's brilliant. If they go, what happens? Like, how fast could it slide? So, like, that's why I go back to it. Like, the iron is hot now. Like, this is your time to make sure that if as Jimmy Lee said to me, that he wants to get a second kit man and the referees come in for training next year, that should be something that is very easily attainable. If there's a couple of small structural things that need to happen in the county, this is the time to go and pursue that. I know Ian Corbett was very vocal with me about the Cornamui and not having amalgamations in that. And again, as you'll understand this, I'm sure far better than I would, but I think it must be very frustrating from a Limerick football perspective to be looking at the Munster Council and this mad rush to fix the Munster Championship, like a sense of urgency that they need to fix this. I'm like, where's the sense of urgency to fix the state of football in Tipperary or Waterford, or to put structures into Limerick? Like, why is that the thing that has you absolutely running to make urgent change? Like, surely to God, it'd be better for the competition, and it's better for the sake of football if you put your priorities where they actually should be. So I think there's an onus on everybody to make sure that, I would, like, in my head, and you're looking at this from selfish reasons again, I suppose, but like, the more competitive the landscape is and the more teams we can get to that level, the better. And Limerick have all of the necessary raw materials in terms of a club pedigree, the quality of players, management, footballing history, to get to be one of those like consistent Division 3, Division 2 teams, like a routine challenger, a Sam Maguire team. And now let's talk about how to make that a reality. So if there was anything that's come from the last couple of days, I think it should be that there's an onus to make sure that you capitalise while the window is open.
Yeah, no, I think you're right there, Maurice. Yeah, they have this momentum now. Obviously, winning the Tailteann Cup would have been huge, but I think you never know. It could be a blessing in disguise that they're at that level again next season. And now maybe there's probably an expectation next year that they're going to go all the way. And look, there's a couple of teams probably coming back towards Division 3, so easier said than done. But I think I'll just wrap it up on the Tailteann Cup, Maurice. This competition was probably set up for counties like Limerick. Limerick hadn't appeared. They'd appeared in the All-Ireland Series once in their history, since 1896, and that was a quarter final where they got blown away by Kerry over a decade ago. Had knocked on the door in the 2000s for a long period, but Tailteann Cup is probably set up for the counties like Limerick, and certainly, and I keep going back to this, winning 5 games. I don't care who they're against, I don't care how you do it. Winning 5 championship games in those summer months just wasn't doable for over a decade for Limerick, and never really. But in general, winning games in the summer just wasn't doable in the old format. So from that point of view, the Tailteann Cup has been a success now. There's probably a few counties that have yet to taste that, but like, they could probably look at a Limerick now coming from Division 4 this year and say, why can't that be us, whether it's getting to a quarter or semi or indeed a final going forward.
And I don't know, what do you think, lads? Like, there's a part of me too that thinks, regardless of it as a pathway or the development that comes from the Tailteann Cup, if the only thing teams are getting out of that means that the likes of Wicklow and Limerick and Fermanagh are playing football into late July, and you saw the sense that, like, a gorgeous day in the Gaelic grounds, the sun is shining, the boys get to kick the ball around there, there's unbelievable crack, the mood around the place is deadly, the group is in an unbelievable spot. If that's all that comes from that, like, the people get a third day out in Croke Park, it's not worth it. Like that, like, regardless of what it leads to or what comes out of it, the whole point of it should be that we're given a proper program of games, the players who are giving us the entertainment that they're giving us, and the Tailteann Cup can absolutely be part of that. So sometimes I'm kind of like, I don't know, like, you park the conversation about what it will lead to, but look what teams who buy into it, who actually invest in it, are getting out of it, and Limerick are a classic testament to that. And then to your second point, I think when you look across the board now, like, it's noticeable to me, right, that Meath, Down, these teams will routinely reference what winning the Tailteann Cup has did for them. So, and Kildare have a chance now to become the latest example of that. So there absolutely is an advancement perspective, and there's players in dressing rooms who don't necessarily think about the level win silverware suddenly are very, very close to it. But the bigger picture thing too is that it very clearly, it stood to Limerick to be involved in that competition. They got a huge amount out of it as a group, and sure, who anybody else to tell them that that's not of full value, like that, if that's what they're getting out of it, more power to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Maurice, we must thank you for your time. Technology issues on my end aside, but thanks very much, and again, congrats on the piece, and hopefully your phone is still hopping, and I'm sure you're getting great feedback. And look, if any other counties are coming for the Limerick coaches, look, let them put in a big offer.
Well clear.
Yeah, still well clear. Like, let them have another year at this again. We enjoyed I played roller coaster earlier. Roller coasters are up and down. It was generally up for Limerick this year in football, and we enjoyed being part of it. So look, thanks for your time, Maurice, and I'm sure we'll be chatting to you soon on Gaelic Games. All right, chat to you again, Maurice. Okay, John, I just remembered we have club championship this week to bring to the people, and time is moving on. 5 of the 6 senior games will take place this weekend. Obviously, you mentioned a streamed game. That is I'm trying to find the fixtures here now is the problem, but that is the game between Mungo St. Paul's and Newcastle West. A repeat. It's not a repeat, I should say. The 2 sides beaten in the semi-finals last season. So a nice one for us to start. Now I know we've Ula and Galtigales on Thursday night, but certainly from the streaming point of view, that's a big one Friday evening. Yeah,
massive game, Tom. We saw last year the strides Mungret made back at senior football for a very, very long time. I saw them a number of times, and you did as well. That they were very, very close to reaching a county senior football final. One of the men Maurice mentioned there in Paranin, good palavers on this show. On this podcast as well, and has been heavily involved in our streaming of football games over the years too. Obviously, a high-level coach and been one of the brainchilds behind this Mungret revival in football as well. So, from their point of view, they're looking to build on a very, very good 2024 senior football. As I said, very unlucky not to reach the actual decider, top their group. They had beaten Adair, I think I'm right in saying, in the group stage. Of course, they're going on to win the county, early on. Mungret just had a great run in their first defeat, if I'm right in saying this. Memory isn't the greatest as the years go on, but I'm nearly sure the only defeat they did face was in that semi-final. They'd won every other game, or had the drawn one. They were unbeaten, certainly.
5 from 5 in the group they went last year, which is pretty phenomenal, for a first year.
And you're looking again. We mentioned several players throughout this podcast today that for Limerick. One we probably overlooked and was absolutely outstanding. The knockout stages of the Tailteann Cup was Killian Ryan. Phenomenal output. Timing coming off breakdowns from kickouts. Just an exceptional year from Killian, scoring 1-1 as well in the Tailteann Cup final too, you know, which isn't the strongest part of his game, but you know, a very big part of that Mungo team. He missed a lot of last year, funnily enough, through injury, so they got to the semi-finals largely without Killian. Without him being available, but we've mentioned Jason Hassett, Darrow Higgins had a breakthrough year, and there's several other young lads within that panel, the likes of Ronan McGilligan, his third choice keeper, Dermot Hines is on that panel as well. I think I'm forgetting one more maybe on top of that as well. So Munger have a very big nucleus of lads that are in and around the Limerick senior team, and you know, have played throughout the years with Limerick underage in the last number of years as well. So they're going to be better again, you'd imagine, this year. Same management in place with Kevin O'Hagan as manager, with Pat Rannan as the main coach there as well. And then they're up against Newcastle West, you know, surrendered their crown in the semi-final defeat to Adair last year, a game we were both out at in Rathkeale. Comprehensive win for Adair on the day as well. But you know, Newcastle West will be smart if they'd won three counties in a row up to that point. You know, dethroned by Adair, as we said. Hard to know to know where Newcastle West are at. You know, they're under new management this year. You know, so again, and it's obviously still a few regular guys in and around that management setup, but different manager this year, different head coach. So it'll be interesting to see how that gels. It'll be interesting as well. We mentioned the fitness of Emmett Richter just a few minutes ago. He wasn't at full tilt in the Tailteann Cup final. And in the space of less than 6 days later, it'll be interesting to see his availability. Ian Corbett, the same. Probably wasn't fully fit for that Tailteann Cup final. Put in some Trojan effort during it as well. But again, you have Newcastle West now, you know, a senior hurling club as well. Large nucleus of both. You know, they're out in the senior hurling comeback for them from over 30 years the following week as well. So huge game for us starting off, and it is a mouth-watering game from a streaming point of view. Very lucky to get that one first off in the way the games have been drawn. I see this one as being very, very tight, and maybe just about Newcastle West, but again, you'd hard push to call that one, Tom, I think. What about yourself?
Yeah. Oh God, you're putting me on the spot now. I probably be. It's hard to know.
I said by 4 in the predictions. I'm going to withdraw that. That's going to be tighter the more I think about it. But I think
I think this comes down to availability of players and fitness. You touched on them all there. I won't rehash what you said there, but you know, it's this round, the first round of football last year has been the hardest round to call. I think after that, then you're going to get a sense of where teams are at and who's missing and who's in and who's out.
As well,
yeah, who's available. You know, I don't think anyone last year saw Monaghan losing the first 3 or 4 games. You know, and that can happen a little bit out of the blue. You know, they were missing a lot of players at the start last year and just never got the ball running. But just come back to Munger. Yeah, I'd actually probably lean towards Munger here. I think Emmett Richter probably will sit this one out. Again, I'm assuming that hamstring is not in rude health, so I think he's a big absence. We've seen it since he's broke through to the senior team. Anytime he's missed, he's been a big absentee. So I'd be just giving Munger the nod there. But we'll be putting our full predictions online here before tomorrow's games. I suppose, John, I'm conscious of time and everything else. I don't want to put blow by blow from every other game. Just to touch, this is in Group 2. We're referring to there, Munger, St. Paul's and Newcastle West. There 7 p.m. Friday evening. Obviously that will be available to stream, and I believe the link for that will be going live maybe on Thursday or early Friday for those who can't make the game. Saturday in this group, Tailteann Palace Kenry versus Ballylanders. I suppose I've met people from both clubs, John, recently. They're both giving me the poor mouth anyway, that we're missing this fella and that fella, and with this injury and that injury, and I take them at face value. It is a challenging time. Those clubs, Tailteann Palace Kenry, obviously dual senior, and in Ballylanders' case, you know, I suppose I've just about missed the drop in the last few years and have lads involved in other hurling clubs as well. So there's a big balance there in terms of both codes. Elsewhere in this group, St. Kieran's and Gaelic, that's actually pushed back to the 12th of August. So I'm sure one of the clubs had a
week.
Yeah, just push back into the middle of next month. So we'll come back to that one in due course. Just to flip to Group 1, Ula and the Piercing will meet in Carrick and Lish on Thursday evening from 7. The Piercing done in 2 quarter-finals in a row, probably didn't do enough in either of those quarter-finals. Well beaten by Father Casey's, and then I think they're in each of the last 2 seasons. For them, that would be the minimum target, I think, this year. But you just don't know year to year. The parallels that can lie in the senior football championship. But Ula, I think, just about missed the drop last year. Had the top scorer in the championship in the form of Josh Ryan. I suppose they'll be looking to try and seeking to beef up their starting 15 going forward, and whoever wins this game on Thursday evening, I think that will carry them into the rest of the championship in a long way. 2 point here is in a way, it would feel like it's worth more than that, won't it?
I actually couldn't call this one. Call it a
Well,
draw.
call the draw. Yeah.
That is the one I call a draw of all of them. A
Mm.
massive game for both. It sets them off on an upward trend immediately if they can nick the 2 points. Just can't see anything between them.
Yeah, that's a fair point. So that's Thursday evening. That's getting the championship underway. Johnny Murphy in the middle for that one. And then on Saturday, we hardly even mentioned it. I'll come to that one, the last one in a second. But at 5 p.m. on Saturday, Monaleen against Rakiel. Rakiel's return to the grade. I think 6 or 7 seasons, John, since I think they met their fate and were relegated back to intermediate. But a couple of near misses to get back up. They've done it. They won that final last year. In who did they defeat again? From Broadford, was it? I think. Am I gonna?
Mungrip beat from Broadford.
I'm putting myself on the spot, but anyway, it was in Ballygran, but I'm sure there'll be a welcomed addition back to the senior grade and facing Monaleen. So
Galbally,
that's correct. Yeah, I think one of them beat from Broadford in the semi-final. But they'll be welcome back to the senior grade, John. And obviously Monaleen, I mentioned, did not go well last year. I think it was the last round before they got themselves out of trouble. So again, the value of 2 points here will be big for whoever gets out on top.
Yeah, I saw Monaleen in the league final, losing to Father Casey's. It was Gale Force one way or the other in each half. So Casey's had it in the second half. Monaleen didn't make enough of it. Enough there, Tom, though. Like I think that Monaleen have, they've Darren Murray, Conal O'Dwyn, they've a few of their younger players now probably stepping up to a new level of being the senior players on the team now. They've good footballers all over the team. I think Rakiel might struggle in this one. I think Rakiel will probably take points off other teams. I think Monaleen might make a better run of the things this year. Seem very, very organised. I know in defeat in that league final, low scoring game. Didn't really get going in the second half against the Breeze. But yeah, that was the only time I've seen Monaleen this year, but definitely seem to be more organised than they were last year. Eddie Cosgrove is back in charge, but there's a good few young coaches with him, very enthusiastic coaches. And again, did a lot of good things against Father Casey's. A bit disappointed how they performed the second half, but there was enough in that for me to see they're probably on more of an upward curve this year. Time will tell on that. But I've them just getting over Rakiel on Saturday evening. Could be a good game though.
Yeah, that one's in Croom. Not seen too many senior games there in recent times, so it could be another venue being used. 5 p.m. on Saturday evening. And the other game in Group 1, the small matter, John, of a repeat of the county final from last year. Champions are there against the men from Abbeyfield in the form of Father Casey's. So this one has a 4 p.m. start in Newcastle West. That'll get pulses racing early on in the championship, won't it?
Absolutely, yeah. I think outside of the Mungrip Newcastle West game, you've the other two finalists in that, the 4 semi-finalists. They're the two big games. Cases are coming, Tom. We've seen finally their players making an impact on the senior setup for Limerick. We've been wondering why there hasn't been more over years, and there could still even be more if you look at Casey's team. That could probably make their way into the Limerick setup. Hopefully we see something like that next year. I think Casey's are a big bet for the county title this year. We've been saying it for a number of years. They're going to have to do it. Their experience in the final, they weren't that far off against Adair. Adair's now got them over the line. I think in last year's final out in McNeville Park. I'm expecting a big push from Casey's this year, given the unavailability or availability of maybe some of Adair's players early on in the year. We've seen that over the last couple of years that they've been slow starters to the championship. I'm putting this one for Casey by a couple of points. Seeing him in the league final, Shane Kelly's their coach. I think his nous as well. Conversely, saying that about Adair last year. Shane Kelly's nous, he's bringing a lot to this Casey setup, no question of that, given all his experience over the years. with Newcastle West and with Limerick under 20s as well, and he's been involved in so many setups over the years too. And you know, again, mentioned the league final. There was no panic on the sideline from Father Casey, seeing they were down by a good bit at halftime. Absolutely no panic, just wheeled it away in the second half, and they've got plenty of talent off the bench as well, Tom. Seeing good things for Casey's this year, starting with that game against Adare.
Yeah, I know. I'll have to sit down now and forensically analyse these, but I probably would lean towards Casey's. I think the likes of Rory O'Brien, if Rick Potter is back fit as well, I think, you know, having been in with the inter-county team, that'll do their confidence the world of good.
As well, guy like
yeah, real serious operator at this level.
Limerick panelists, they've got players now really coming out their ears at this stage. Guys to bring off the bench that make impacts as well. That Adam Fitzgerald that you play with, Adam. I'm wrong in his second name. I think he came off the bench against Monaghan in the league final. He would have been part of the John Kearns Limerick minor team that
not Cork, was it?
No, it's not. It's not Cork's. I'm doing him a disservice. Apologies, Adam. Yeah, he came off the bench. He got a couple of points. He was a corner forward in that Limerick minor team that won phase 2. I think it's the John Kearns Cup. I can't remember exactly. A couple of years ago, we were at the game down in Mallow where you earn success there. But it's just what I'm saying about Case, they just seem to have a lot of players have built up experience in a very, very quick space of time. So maybe this is their year finally for it to come to fruition at the senior grade. We could be saying that next year again as well. We just don't know. But just seeing the appointment of Shane Kelly coaching the team, I think, is one that could maybe be the difference for them this year.
Yeah. Now let's see how it plays out. But look, 5 games at the weekend in that grade. There's also intermediate, Premier Junior, Junior A, Junior B. That's where you might see me if you're lucky, and the Junior C, the inaugural Junior C Championship getting underway. So I suppose best of luck to all teams. I think there's 70 teams lining out across the grades, or 60. I had the number in my head recently, but it just escaped me at this time. But big opportunity for a lot of teams, and look, we'll see who'll challenge to come back up to the senior grade, or get up to the senior grade, as it were, as well. So we'll keep an eye on those grades as we progress. John, just to wrap it for us this week, the Masters. Obviously, Matt is normally in the Masters corner. You're someone who has I suppose your finger in that pie, as it were, this season in regards to the football. Unfortunately, the hurlers, I think they were level with Tipperary at halftime or thereabouts.
And Tip pulled away in the second half. A strong Tipperary team is putting it mildly. Captain Bushen, they put up a big score in the second half. But the Masters hurlers in their first year, I think they've won. They've won 1, drawn 1, lost 2. I think I'm open to correction. And apologies if I don't have that right.
Right there, yeah.
You know, but yeah, I know a good few lads in the panel, and I know the enjoyment levels are fairly high in that. From the Masters footballers' point of view, that an unfortunate last game against was it Wicklow? Maybe I'm wrong. Was it Wicklow? I think it was Wicklow where they received the walkover.
Yeah, Wicklow. Yeah.
It was a shame. It was a game. It was one of their 2 home games, which was a shame they didn't get to play that in down in Robogue in St. Patrick's GA Club's grounds. Would have been a good day out on the Saturday. I know there was plenty of things planned. It was a shame they didn't get to come to fruition. Next week, Tom, they're out in their next game, their final group game, which is against Mayo. It's a neutral venue game, and just today it was confirmed that it'll be on in Claregalba. I think it's 2:00 in Claregalba, but we can have that across our socials in the lead up to that, to confirm that. But yeah, it's definitely Mayo and Claregalba anyway next Saturday for Anthony McCarthy's side. So wishing them all the best early on from that.
Yeah, a win might be important there, just to rise a couple of more places in the rankings.
10 to 11 to
yeah. So we'll know an awful lot more about that, where they lie for the knockouts and the various tiers of the competition. But so as I said, best of luck to the lads against the green and red of Mayo. John, we've done plenty there over the last, I was going to say hour and a half. It's been a bit longer with my technical difficulties, and indeed maybe Billy's as well. I hope, folks, that you got the message from Billy. I know his imagery was not the greatest; it was breaking up, but I'm sure he got plenty out of that. And it was great, of course, to talk to Maurice and get a little bit of a different perspective on the Limerick football scene as we speak. And as we said, if you haven't read that piece, it's on the Examiner website. well worth checking out, and something that I think hopefully we should see more of across Gaelic games in the future in different counties and indeed in different spheres. So, John, thank you very much for your time on Treaty Talk, and we will be talking to you soon. A reminder, of course, as we said, the streaming back this weekend, Friday evening with Mungret St. Paul's versus Newcastle West, and plenty more to be announced in the coming days and weeks about the hurling and indeed football coverage to boot. So links will be available for that pretty promptly, and do get stuck in, and we'll be chatting to you.